Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we are going to talk a little bit more about that weird Lion versus Imperials box set rumour that we talked about last week. This is mostly because quite a few of you have messaged me saying there's been more information has been revealed about this rumour. Well, I say more information, it's just sort of more rumoury stuff to go along with the original rumour, which I'm still not 100% convinced by in any way. Although there are little changes to it that maybe make it have a bit more sense to it, but look, we'll talk about it. So, essentially, it's been changed significantly. No mention of Lionel Johnson, instead it's just Dark Angels in the box set. And, of course, there's going to be two forces in there, because it's a box set, there's always two forces. That's something that a couple of people did specifically point out, which did lead me to think, have we had a box where there's been like 3 or 4 different forces in it? I don't think that there have. It's always 2. And there will be a Primaris version of a Dark Angels HQ in the set. And one person said that it's definitely going to be a Loyalist foe. Someone else said it was going to be Fallen. Two people said it was going to be Loyalist. One person said it was going to be Fallen. And one person just said Aquila based. Which, I mean, that could be literally anything. Aquila is not really the most helpful thing I've ever heard in my life. And to be honest, having looked around a little bit, I can see where I think most of you got this from, and it's the same source as last time, they who shall not be named. But to be honest, this makes things a little bit more feasible, a bit more plausible, because for a start, there was no way Lionel Johnson was ever going to be released in a box set. That's absolutely ludicrous. Games Workshop would not do that. However, switching it out to just Dark Angels versus someone, that immediately gives it more credibility, and that immediately makes it more likely. I can easily see a Dark Angels versus whoever box set, because, well, we've already had that before, and, well, it's just normal, isn't it? It would just be the Imperium side of that box. The thing that is still weird, and the thing that's interesting, potentially, is the idea of a Primaris HQ, like a replacement character, someone perhaps getting an upgrade, the same way that Primanius Calgar got his upgrade. An interesting thing that could happen to the story, and could perhaps bring the whole Dark Angels suspicion of the Primaris into a different context, maybe. But again, that is just pure speculation. The thing is, still, that opponent side of things, I do not for a second believe that Games Workshop would make Dark Angels traitors. Whilst it would be quite an interesting story element, and it would definitely be a surprise, and would be kind of funny given all the memes about Dark Angels actually just being traitors, that would alienate a huge number of people, and it would piss a lot of people off. You cannot take a popular faction and just go, oh, by the way, your guys are the enemy now. That's not how that works. If you really want to annoy people, that's how you do it. You take their chosen faction, you take their army, and you go, oh, by the way, they're not anything that you thought they were, off you go, enjoy yourself. That's not going to happen. I cannot see Games Workshop doing that. I can see them introducing a new chapter and then having that chapter turn and make that a significant turn, like a new Primaris chapter that actually turns out they can fall to chaos and quite badly. I could see that happening, but I could see that happening before that chapter was ever really released model-wise. It would be a bit of lore. It wouldn't be taking an existing army and just flipping it on its side. That seems like a bad idea that would piss a lot of people off. So, if the Dark Angels are the Loyalist side of things, which makes the most sense, who would they fight who has an Aquila? Because again, I struggle to think that they would put 2 Loyalist forces against each other in a box. It's not the same as the Horus Heresy. I know there is constant civil war in the Imperium because chapters fall to chaos all the time. You know, chapters turn traitor, they go renegade, all of that stuff. This is stuff that happens constantly, but it's not the primary focus. It is not the overarching storyline of 40k. That is very much dominated by Chaos versus Space Marines, and you can see that reflected in things like the countless instances of boxes or just narratives that involve Chaos Space Marines versus Space Marines. It is 2 sides in Power Armor, but they are very different sides in Power Armor. Whereas Dark Angels versus like Blood Angels, for instance, would be an unusual combination because it would essentially be Loyalists fighting each other. Something, again, that does happen. There are plenty of instances where one Loyalist chapter goes after another Loyalist chapter because one of them believes the other one to be a traitor. So, story-wise it happens, but would that work in the context of an actual box? Would that be something Games Workshop would do in the narrative of 40k? I don't know. It seems unlikely to me because there are so many other factions to pull from. Perhaps the idea is Dark Angels versus Fallen, which we have talked about before. But then again, Fallen, that would be an interesting one again, because that would be essentially Dark Angels versus Dark Angels. That would not have the distinctive versus element that you get from the boxes. I mean, they have given insights on how the boxes are planned out and the different foes in the boxes. There are ways of doing it. They are following a formula. You know, one side has to be distinctive from the other to really be worth doing, to actually follow that formula that they have. Dark Angels versus Fallen wouldn't really follow that, because it would be essentially two sides with the same logos having a big fight, which would look weird and would not draw newer people in. And that's a big part of what they do with the boxes. There are plenty of others, but a lot of them don't make any sense. I mean, Grey Knights would have no reason to go after the Dark Angels. Deathwatch wouldn't. I mean, the Custodes would be an interesting matchup, but is that something that they would be really deployed to do? How would that work story-wise? I don't know. The only thing that I can think Aquila-based, which is something that has been mentioned repeatedly, is Emperor's Children. Dark Angel versus Emperor's Children would be a completely feasible box. That would make sense to me. But that would be... I don't know. That would not in any way fit in with the idea of the Lion versus Imperials. At that point, the context of the original Rumour is so completely different, where it's not Lionel Johnson. It is a Dark Angels character, but you'd have that in a box set anyway. And it's not versus Imperials, it's versus Chaos. At which point, what does that Rumour become? What does that actual box become? It becomes Imperium versus Chaos. Which is absolutely nothing to write home about at all, because that is the constant overarching storyline of this world, of this universe, and we see it over and over again. But again, that's not really anything to do with the original Rumour, is it? That's totally different. That would just be Dark Angels versus Emperor's Children. It would not be the Lion versus Imperials. The actual storyline of that is completely not the same. Honestly, it's just got more muddy. It's got more likely, but it's just got more muddy, because if you break down what's actually being reported as rumours, it is a Dark Angels Primaris character, which, if there is a box set of them, is like inevitable. And then it's versus maybe Loyalist, maybe Traitors, or something to do with an Aquila, which could be either side, but there are some that are more likely than others. Perhaps against Traitor Guard is a possibility. I mean, Traitor Guard, I'm not going to say they're definitely on their way, but it seems reasonable to assume that we would see a release for the Traitor Guard at some point soon. Well, not soon, at some point. So, yeah, kind of a weird one, to be honest. It's still not getting any better. It's just becoming more generic by the day, this rumour. So, let me know what you think in the comments down below, whether there's anyone that jumps out as you as being particularly likely to have a massive scrap with the Dark Angels, why that would happen, who might get some sort of Primaris themed upgrade, and does it even count as the same rumour at this point? Does it even count as the same thing? Or has it just descended into there's going to be Imperium versus Chaos set at some point? Which, that's not a rumour, that's just what will happen. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things, Patreon video, subscribe, all of that shit. Click it if you like, don't click it if you don't want to, and I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.